Yours, hello gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. Okay, so I played game in 5 minutes per side. I had the white pieces. I opened up with e4. Sicilian. I steered things towards the English opening with c4. So e5, c5, c4, or sort of an English opening. And after a6 and knight c3, both sides are simply either placing pawns so as to develop their pieces correctly or developing pieces directly. Now here I see after black's fourth move, 1, 2, 3, 4, black has moved 4 pawns, spending a move on each one of the A, C, D, and E pawns. I say this, black doesn't have that kind of time. Okay, so in part as a reaction to that, and in part just because to make a move, I played d4 and opened things up before black has time. White is ahead in development, has better control of the center by black's sixth move. White is doing a little bit better. b6, again, just you don't have that kind of, black doesn't have that kind of time. White does, as I show with h4, and I'm willing to continue to press on the h file. Perhaps after knight f6, white is giving away this pawn with the move g4, right? I make g4 to help the pawn storm on the king side. And I'm not all that worried about losing my e4 pawn. A little bit worried about what could happen thereafter on h1, but that's that. So knight takes e4, and then just simply rook to g4. I've lost a pawn, big whoop. I have a very strong attack building. And black, for black's part, does well with knight takes c3. Capturing back is, of course, the move here for white. And so I've played to an inferior position. I would say that most of that is born out of the fact that 1, 2, then 3 moves to get to a queenside castle if I make towards that immediately. And then with a king on c1, he has air around him. He is not even all that safe after castling. Kingside castling, of course, is not possible. And staying in the center seems like the best idea. Even that might come with some fire against white's king. Some sort of attack. Not exactly as strong, but those are some of the attack lines. So white has bad king safety. Black will look to play bishop e7 and then a kingside castle and have a more safe and secure galactic king. More safe and secure king. Knight c6. And pawn to g5. Some trades on the g file. White is going for an attack above more of a positional blight and to maintain an eye on material, but not in a miserly way. We've shown that we're a little bit in the mood for a more wild chess game than that. Queen moves to d7. You look at pawn to f6 and think that might be a good move, and I agree. I think pawn to f6 here might have been pretty good because white has to move the h pawn before he can get bishop h5 check in it at all. And go back to the review. So the queen moves out of the way of the attack. And then bishop g5 pins this pawn to the queen. That pawn would otherwise have been useful to own more of the center and kick white's knight from d4. Suppose I capture on c6 and then bishop captures on c6 for black. That position is pretty good for black. This bishop now streaming all the way from one side from the queen side to the king side, and with the queen that can join in a moment's notice, things are better there for black. So the bishop to g5, bishop to g4 might have helped with that. It wasn't my aim really. Not sure. It might have been my aim. My aim's to block to pin the pawn on e6. Pawn to f6, and then bishop takes e6 is a little bit daring. How about knight takes d4, and then if white plays queen takes d4, then queen takes e6 check, and black has an extra piece out of the deal, and that's even before king f1 and f takes g5. Yikes, but I found a better move. Or as my opponent's turn, he finds the best move to pin white's bishop against the king. So all those tactics would work if white hadn't just placed black and black's queen under attack on d7. Anyway, my opponent in strong fashion finds queen to e7. And then here things get a little bit inaccurate for this move. We're people, we make mistakes, and it's sort of more of a sloppy line of chess there. A knight to f5. We'll get back into things here. Knight to f5, forcing the queen to move. She doesn't have a good check against my king, and my knight is getting closer to targets on black's side of the board. For instance, on d6, there's the potential fork against black's king on e8 and rook on c8. I think I missed a step here. No, rook to d1 is still good. And then after rook c4, I found the brilliant move. Rook takes g7, sacrificing my rook for a bishop and a pawn, but also picking up a queen. But with that, no, I didn't sacrifice. I didn't get the bishop. Sorry about that. But the bishop's coming off of. Let's go back. Sorry about this, folks. Rook takes g7. The queen might have to flee. Or if black captures on g7, then comes, instead of either fleeing or some other move that doesn't make sense, you would play, not that this move makes sense, you would play knight to d6 check and pick up the queen. Okay, so that's why I made that move. And now the story is more about, more gravity has some extra material, but also the queen piece. Can he finish this game in less than 20 seconds? And it turns out, yes, I was able to do that. I'm going to sort of sneak in here and find the correct checkmate before time expires. So it was one of those really last-minute games that was nonetheless very exciting to play. Okay, now I'm going to play more chess. I'm playing more chess. A heck of a game. Saddened to have lost, though. Okay. Black played one very, very bad move. Let's see why Bishop f6 was quite as bad as I thought. I'll move to find this position within practice. First the computer. It's Black's turn to move. And the indicators and evaluation, the evaluation bar is indicating that Black has much better than Bishop to h6. And for the one thing, one of the things I think of right away, Bishop to d6. And that doesn't seem all that bad, developing a piece. Not here, not here, not here. E7's maybe too passive. G7, again, passive because of the bad double pawns on the f file. And h6 is been flagged by the computer as bad. That's why we're having this discussion. So I think Bishop to d6. I don't see a tactical issue with that. This is just a slightly better move for Black. And the computer opponent shows that b3 can be maybe a little bit annoying for Black, but we'll always have the retreat square on b5. And then, alright, so king side castles. And I'll still jettison my dark square bishop for my opponent's outposted knight. And against computer, I'm going to get walloped in a position like this. I'm going to get creamed, defeated. But against a human being here with Black move, I like my chances. Okay. Game we saw Bishop h6, and actually let's go back and start from the beginning. We might not have all that much to say, so we were just evaluating move 14 reasonably close to the beginning. C4 is early decision to lock up the pawns on the queen side of center. I might have taken some time to figure that out. Close to 10 seconds, 8 seconds. I didn't like Black after c takes d4, queen takes d4, and then even knight to c6, but then just queen takes d5, and I'm down a pawn in a game that looks like it's about to lose both the queens. So I said, I can do better than that, and played pawn to c4. c3, strong pawn chain, and capturing it on the e-file was good. Look, my opponent wants to, we see moves like d4 here. We see moves like e4 here. My opponent wants to open up this position. And so you gotta say at some point, okay, fine. I mean, you might want to, if I'm playing the game and I was keen to that at that point in time, which I was not at that point in time, but if I were, I might play moves to kind of, they're still good chess moves, but they draw on the fact that clearly my opponent wants to open up the position. That's fine. I wasn't thinking like that at the time. And the other side of it is, then open up the position, right? That's it. If it's still a good move, d takes e4 here, it's still a good move, then open up the position. So after bishop e4, pawn to f5. It was a bit of a wacky move to move my f pawn this early. I've been experimenting with this. Because if queen to h5, then pawn to g6, blocking the check. If queen to h5 check, then pawn to g6, blocking the check. And now both white's queen on h5 and white's bishop on e4 are under attack. But this would be, queen to whose turn is it? Queen to h5 here. That's an attractive move to play. That's a natural looking move to play, and it does work well for white. So that's part of the reasoning behind pawn to f5. Plus, we could catch white sleeping if bishop takes f5, bishop takes f5, and we've got a bishop for the pawn. Then there's some other things that black's f5 pawn is helping to control the center. How about that? Once we get the knight to f6, then the check on h5 is pretty much not even there. How about that? So I think that pawn to f5 was still. I think this is a reasonable move by black. A pretty good move. My opponent, then my opponent may be giving the best criticism here. Bishop takes c6, b takes c6, and these double pawns on the c file are ugly. 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 My friends from the Bioshock world will understand my intent there. No, but back to chess. These c pawns, these are bad, man. They're so weak. They could be picked off real easily. So I think for that reason, white is doing very well. White is doing very well here, quite well, even materially. But some of these pawns that black has are just targets. And you see, knight to d2 is a reasonable attempt to pick off one of those pawns, for pretty much nothing. Pick off the pawn at c4 and then establish an outpost on e5, and white is sitting pretty. Perhaps I misspoke. If this moment, I'm sure of things. Here, can white play knight takes c4? Doesn't show up. Let's put it there. Oh, no, I had given white the extra move of initiative. Okay. Well, moving on. Knight takes c4 is criticized as a blunder here. Yes, quite, and it is. I want to say a lot of this is from experience. I played a lot of chess, and I noticed I noticed almost right away, queen d5, the fork against the knight on c4, and the rook on h1. There's all kinds of moves to try to shimmy out of it, maybe attack the queen, but then she just captures the rook. Or bring the queen to f3, and then she pursues the plan of capturing the knight on f4. Black's king is within range, so how about knight d6 check? But we've got a queen to recapture, or if we had to, in some variations, maybe e takes d6, and this is just a clear tactic. It presented itself to me, and I'm glad to say I spotted it. So I'm glad about that. My game is progressing in that way. Queen d5. The offer the trade, but then turn it down to capture a full knight. My opponents, I think they call this, some of our chess players call this the defensive initiative. Knight to e2 is a really bad move if it comes up after bishop a6. You can and I did play bishop a6 anyway. But if black could play now, queen takes e2 check, queen takes e2, and then bishop takes a6, king takes a6. Hey, black's up 2 points of material, and we've got rooks and one bishop and a few pawns on the board. That's stronger than being up 2 points of material with enemy knights, queens, rooks that can be connected reasonably straightforwardly. And now we're talking this is a little more dangerous for black. Remember, black is looking to reduce material. Okay. Part of this is part of an apologist explanation of bishop to a6. Bishop to a6 is here is to say that, well, if white castles queenside, then the knight is lost, or if things stay the same, then we can have a mass trade of material, queens per side and a minor piece, and black would be better off as a result. Bishop a6, knight f4. Here the some sort of mega blunder. We were looking at this earlier. It looks like white has just barely the opportunity, and that is to find a kind of strange move in this position. But an attack against white's queen, b3. I'm following this line on the analysis output. b3, queen b5 makes sense. Queen h5, check. The main point of this attack is queen h5 check. And if white throws in b3 before that, then black is doing very poorly. Back to b5, queen to h4 check, king must move, and then queen takes h6. Right. Well, as a competitor, I'm glad that didn't cost me the game. As a developing player, I should be noticing those types of tactics. Bishop takes f4. There's no need to wait before reducing the material. Then grabbing a pawn on a2. Rook to d8 here. Rook to d8 is suggested by the engine. I would not look at this right away. In a tournament game with a lot of time, maybe, yeah, probably then I would look at this move to attack white's queen. She can't centralize to give a check on e6 because my queen has that square covered. So I'm wondering, this is considered best move by Torch 4 Light. I'm wondering if queen takes c6 check isn't just picking up a clear pawn. Nope, we have new indications here that rook to d8 is still quite good for black. Now black is ahead enough material. Okay, no, that's alright. I'm okay with that. I played instead queen to d5, making the possibility of trade likely, or quite likely, or fairly likely, and also making it clear that black wants to trade queens. White knew that. But queen back to a3, and I thought bishop to e2 was a nifty way of getting over to the king side with tempo, and then restructuring the board, and how the board is. It really kind of restructures the terrain of the board with bishop to f3 and the queen at d5 forming a strong battery, and then that comes again with tempo against one of the rooks. And then, What to say? This is a horrible blunder, right? There's no other way to talk about this. The Queens lost on A5, and Black captures and signaling his intent to press forth and earn the win. So my opponent resigned. Interesting game. It's a good and interesting game. In this game, I lost, and I don't really usually go over my losses. Maybe we'll allow this to play sort of in the background. I'm about to sign off for this session. Did I lose? Black loses here on time. Yeah, it's probably it's an even board. I lost on time, but remember, if you lose on time, remind yourself your opponent was making his or her moves quicker the whole game long, right? You lost on time. If you lost on time in a 5-minute game, 5-minute per side game, and you lost by 1 minute and 55 seconds, that means your opponent was ahead on the clock and making his or her moves quicker than you for quite a while. So you kind of do the victory in some ways. Now that doesn't mean it's not frustrating. It's still frustrating to win a board win on to lose a board win because of time. And that's the other side of it. All right. All right. That's it, my friends. I had a great game here, enjoyable game against Andy, and before that against Mount Solly, Mount Save, sorry, I'm not sure. Fun opponents to play chess against, the same too with Roberto in the game before that. Alright. Thank you, my viewers, for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. Add more gravity. Have a great night.